newly independent. And as someone that's been in this business for 13 years?
12 years since I was 21, yeah.
Been through the major label system, now with the independent system. What's been the difference? We have a lot of creatives that are our listeners' audience, as well as a lot of musicians, a lot of people that are trying to break into the music industry, don't fully understand it, know that, all right, if I catch a major label lick, I'll get an advance and feel like I've made it. 10 years later, feel like shit. What's been this process? Because you've been on both sides of it.
Look, I want to say it's not like one size fits all. And I really do give a big shout out to especially our partners in the past. Like when we had They and Gallant going through Warner in 2015. And then obviously when we did our shit with Darkest and Latrice and Island in 2019, there was a time and a place and they all did a great job. But there comes a time where the cost of doing business just isn't worth it anymore. And when you got someone that's in their 50s or 60s that doesn't speak the language of what you're working on, communicating your music or your art to these platforms, from that perspective, it doesn't make sense. And same goes for, you know, when you talk about like A&Ring or marketing, it's like, well, if you don't live this and you're just like kind of ticking a box, I don't need 19 cooks in the kitchen. You know, I'm writing, producing, mixing, all this shit with our internal team. And I actually enjoy that. It's not like a chore. It's like a lot of people are like, oh, well, I got to get in and do these sessions and then I got to go and find a mixer. But these are all experiences and shit that I really learned from. And then when you bust it down to the business of it, and I think this is where there's, to me, a really high level of confusion. And for simple math, you know, if you sign for $1 million and you get a great deal with these majors, you do an 80-20, you know, an 80-20 royalty deal, out the gate, you're in for $5 million. And some people don't understand, well, how did you get that number? It's like, well, for every dollar that they gave you, you got to recoup 5X because 20 times 5 is 100. So same goes when they give you tour support. Now all of a sudden, that $100,000 tour support to go on tour, that's 500,000 you're in the hole. And for the 49 artists on that dartboard, or let's say there's like a major label and they throw 50 darts at a board, that one artist is going to pay for the 49 mistakes. But if you're in that 49 and you're not careful, you may get to a place where not only like you lose your passion or you lose your love for it, but you also just get disillusioned to the business. And it's not the artist's fault. It's not the major's fault because the people that are at the majors running it have no control. It's an archaic business model built by really old people that are out of touch. And the new business model isn't educated or there isn't a healthy form of educating the new business model because there's not enough people winning in that regard. And the ones that are catch a big generational bag, you know, whether it's 20, 30, 40 million to go and do a deal after they've been independent. And they don't talk about how they built that. So, by the way, it's not cheap. Up until 5 days ago, I was like shaking in my boots trying to figure out how we're going to fund this tour, how I can keep trying to make like orange textured vinyl and these candles and all the fly shit that we want to make, but at the same time, make sure the music gets heard. Like it costs $250,000 to take a record to radio. If you did that with the major, out the gates, you be in for whatever that is, 1.25.
Right.
So you got to pick your spots a little different. And sure, being on a 90-10 profit split where you own, that's awesome. But how are you incentivizing your partners? You know, my best friend is my art director, my creative partner. He has equity on shit that we work on. If I was trying to give like a 0 to 1 plan for an artist, if you're just like somebody in a studio making music and you're trying to build your team, find partners. This is what I didn't learn when I was, you know, failing and 23 years old. It took me that 9-10 years because I didn't understand how do you align your interests with these people. Well, you got to treat them like fair partners. You know, our management partner, Britt, she has equity. She's effectively like the CEO of Emotional Oranges. You know, Rory is obviously doing a lot of the help A&R and marketing and branding, but somebody needs to run the business.
Yeah.
Rory has, you know, 3 full-ass jobs. I got 3 full-ass jobs. Well, who's going to run it? Brittany's incredible. You know, so But there's also those horror stories then when you look at it and it's like, well, I managed such and such. They got to X level line on Coachella and they fired me. A couple of my close friends did this to their managers. There's no equity in that. So just like trying to reimagine, like, how are you building your business to get to a place where maybe in the beginning it makes sense to take that funding from a major and do a lopsided deal. Right. But when you get out of that shit, restructuring and making sure that everyone involved feels like don't just say partners. Because if you're paying them, if they're catching a wage on a 1st and a 15th, they're not a partner. So that's why I was like hella passionate leaving the major, is because I understood, I got the information that I needed and was able to apply it in real time. Sorry for the rant.
No, that was dope. That was very necessary to hear that.
And it's interesting because I do love that independent and talking about independence has become so trendy. And I don't mean that in a bad way. What type of artists do you think makes sense on a major as far as what their business model would be or the type of music that they're trying to make or the audience they're trying to get to would make sense on a major versus someone that would make sense independently? Because obviously with EO, everything for the most part is in-house. Like what the fuck does a major, outside of funding, what's the point of a major?
I had to be really, really honest and check my ego at the door and be a little like brutally self-aware. Maybe the shit that we're making, you know, at the time we did the deal, I was 29. Maybe I'm a little too old to pop off commercially and be able to look myself in the mirror and go, well, shit, I could still build an arena touring fan base. And, you know, my favorite artists, when I bust it down to like, you know, Janet, Gorillaz, and Sade, if that's like my North Star shit, then, I mean, Gorillaz just caught their second lick this year with all the TikTok shit happening. Yeah. I saw Damon Albarn perform at the Forum, 10,000 tickets at 54 years old. It felt like he was 34 and he's making 8 figures a year quietly. And he can go to the grocery store and still cop shit and go back.
Right.
So for me, it was really hard to not be like, I want to grow up and be like the people that I saw on, you know, BET and MTV. And it's all good if I create this really ill cult base with my family, essentially at this point. Like y'all are fucking like my brothers and sisters and shit. Like, I prefer that. I'm cool with that. But that was really, really challenging, to be honest, because you have to kind of like let one dream die in order for another one to kind of be born, if that makes sense.
But do you feel like it's a necessary thing? Like you have to go through the having the deal to learn the business, and then you say, okay, I would rather do this independently and give my friends and the people around me ownership and build this thing together. Like a lot of people come in now, they say they want to be independent. They want to be independent out the gate. Do you think that's a good thing? Or do you think it's sometimes necessary to, you know, go through the label thing and learn that part of it, but then eventually get to a place where you own everything?
I completely agree. And also you can just do more healthy deals now. It's like almost like the status quo to do licensing deals with these majors. But even then, make sure you understand the business. Because sometimes it's better to have them take more of the pie so they can bring to life your vision. I'll keep it super G with you. I have no interest in waking up at 6 a.m. and getting on a phone call with a radio plugger in Singapore, bro. Right. My talents are much better utilized in the studio here with y'all, like, you know, trying to think of some creative merch shit. I have no interest in talking to like old boy in Madrid trying to get my shit on the radio. I don't even know I don't speak Spanish like that. So why would I? So understanding, well, wait a second. If I do this deal with such and such major, and if you really have the leverage to do that and your song is already working in said places, that's where they can come in and amplify at a real level. But if you're naive, and you got to remember, I thought about not saying this shit and I feel like I need to because we're at this place. Right now, the way that the music industry is built for everyone involved, not just the major labels, it's incentivizing the short-term bag. So the business manager is catching 5%, the lawyer is catching 5%, the manager is catching 20%. All this is upfront of whatever you sign on the front end. But they're not incentivized in the long run. So if some shit happens to you, God forbid, they might not even finish the agreements for your album. If you do some foul shit, they already made their money. But if they were partners and it was in the long term of your product, I promise you, your business manager, your manager, and your lawyer would want to own those rights for the long term if they saw a future with you. Right. So bringing those people into the fold out the gate and making sure y'all see eye to eye, all that shit is like a relationship. And we have to level the playing field financially and from an incentivizing perspective for everyone involved. That's where I think this shit is fucked up. It's not because the majors are doing bad deals. If y'all had a good team, y'all wouldn't even be talking to the majors to begin with. Unless you had bro, if we catch a viral TikTok moment right now, you think Rory wants to wake his ass up at 5 a.m. and talk to Singapore? No. They want to, and if Tunji wants to give us 10 million, he's like, yo, you guys started something. You built a great base. It's super cute. We're going to go and make this thing a hit. We could just do one project together. Y'all got you could send us the art, the songs, the but yeah, but we're in our early 30s now. We've seen the fuck shit. We're doing 3,800 tickets in LA at the Palladium. We're doing Brooklyn Steels. We're doing History in Toronto. But that's because it's been 3.5 years of rigorous touring.
Right.
So if you haven't done that and you're like on TikTok and you catch your moment, some people it's food and beverage. And that's fine. If it's food and beverage and you can be honest with yourself and everybody involved,
cool.
Catch your bag.
Right.
But if you're in this because you want to make great art and you want to create something that lasts, that's a different conversation. That's a whole different trajectory. And as long as the people on your side, can disseminate the two, then you're good money.